For your consideration, I'll be submitting to Awesome Games Done Quick 2023 the Beat the Game category for the game GBA Star Wars Trilogy Apprentice of the Force. Now, this category in particular is a category that just requires you to beat the game without anything else extra added. And I'm showing a little bit before. I'm going to make a minor little difference that I'm going to mention. I showed a slight set of mistakes that I made in one of the last runs. I'm not showing off the current world record, but rather a pretty good demonstration of what can be done in this particular game. Is that the speeder chase is actually something that we replay for a slightly different category, which I will also be submitting, known as Trench Run Skip. So before the run begins, we do a replay of the speeder chase all the way to completion, no matter how good or bad it goes. We just complete it, start a new file, and play through all the way until we get to the section where we are chasing down to destroy the Death Star. And we will skip a majority of it, save for the final chase with Darth Vader, where he's trying to round us out and kill us. And that trench run skip can save in upwards of 3 to 4 minutes. It's pretty incredible. So, as a potential donation incentive in the form of a vote, the viewers could decide before my run whether they want me to show off the skip or decide Glasses had too much fun, let's torture him with the trench run sequence. So they could decide to swing it one way or another, and that would be a good voting incentive, donation voting incentive. So that would be a good way to decide between the two, as you could have it decided that way. I'll be commentating primarily for the regular category. So as soon as that run gets started, I will start talking about that. There'll be a bit wider gaps, unlike the Jackie Chan Adventures run that I commentated, since there's a little bit less to specify in between each of the runs. So and I'll talk about this a little bit later. There's a particular jump that I missed a lot of times in this attempt. Oh wait, it's coming up right now. It's a skip that I failed to hit there and decided to reset. So, for the regular game category, we're playing through the original Star Wars trilogy as intended. All 3 episodes, which are episodes 4, 5, and 6. So, does not necessarily matter which brightness we set or which language we set. It seems the story mode goes about the same, so I usually just pick the regular American language, but maybe we'll discover there's minor time save from one or another. It would help to have a task to precisely figure that out, but there is not quite a task yet for this particular game. If there were ever a moment that there were to be a task and we find out like major differences in loads and everything, it may come down to this this game having separate categories between console and emulator, because the two move at significantly different enough speeds where it would be fair to separate the two in that instance. So the beginning of the game is pretty straightforward. Just shoot a few boxes, get proper jumps, and then we just play through the cutscene as follows. Now with this particular cutscene, we can't actually press start, otherwise we'll pause the actual cutscene itself. So we just have to mash A and B. Going through the regular synopses, we can actually press start to and spam start and AB at the same time to speed up through the sequence of those particular segments. Hardest jump in the game right there. You can fall in sometimes. You have to time your jumps, particularly at the last possible moment. So, and it shows another part of this game is each time you get to a certain part of the level, there will be a fighting sequence where you have to destroy small numbers of enemies. In the case of episode 4, we're starting off with Tusken Raiders. The blaster makes it pretty easy to round them up for the most part, and it's pretty speedrunner friendly for the most part. So just blast away from whatever next energy direction the enemies are going to be appearing from, and that'll do it. So in this particular category, we are focused on primarily just making sure that we plant ourselves on one side, try not to get caught in the quicksand, and then just blast back and forth, whatever we're able to get the job done with, of course. There will be certain sections where we're going to purposely shoot the Tusken Raiders for health. We'll get health drops in the first multiple stages of the game. Not much about that is going to change all that much, so you'll get to see it happen all the time until about episode 6, and we'll get to that later. Right now, you may notice I'm shooting some of the Tusken Raiders from the top. It rarely happens, but there are some examples where if you get the top one and you're just high enough above the screen, you can skip on the rare occasion 1 or 2 of the Tusken fight sequences. Runner by the name of Ghost Boy has been able to pull this off, but we rarely ever happens. So as you can see, the boss there is that specially shaded Tusken Raider at the top. Shoot him down and get to the end of the level like such. So we're getting to what I like to label slow 2D2, because R2D2 does not move very quickly, and speedrunning with R2D2 actually comes down to you're not dashing. You saw the dash function that we just recently gained, but we're just going to kind of just walk. As you can see, if we are not within a certain sight of R2D2, you'll get that text and it wastes about a second. So we're actually going to purposefully dash in this section here, like I just showed earlier, so that R2D2 doesn't get unnecessarily damaged, and we can just quickly pick up our required key to activate the elevator and get to the next section. So that is what we do here in particular. So there's 2 options. You can either just wait for the elevator to show up and then let R2D2 board, or you can just go right for the door. I opted to wait out the elevator activation just so I knew it wasn't going for sure. Then you just have to wait a little bit for R2D2 to catch up to you so you can move on to the next area. And the elevator cycles can be random. I got a quick one right away on this particular run, so. And we have to wait for the next elevator to show up. In the instance of this game, there are certain stormtrooper cycles we'll get hit with, so the faster we go into some rooms, the better. If we take it a little bit slower, it can also save more time on those encounters. So you can see there is blue ammo as well. It isn't exactly that much different from the regular blasto armor. I think the only difference is it just shoots a tiny bit faster. The hits are exactly the same as far as I'm concerned. So it may have looked like R2D2 got hit there, but we were actually standing in the way of our lovely little astromech robot, so we took the damage instead. If R2D2 is to take any damage in any part of the run, we could lose an upwards of like 5 or 10 seconds having to let R2 heal if a healing station's up ahead. So we have a few dashes. You'll see more of that now that R2's out of our way. We did our first 2 series of dashes to pick up a healing item, and then the next few set of dashes lined up perfectly to catch each of the platforms so that we don't fall into that bottomless pit. Falling in there does lose us about 5 to 15 seconds depending on which side we fall on. We want to make sure to grab the key. Sometimes I forget to grab it, so you'll see me doing a lot of movement just based around my dashing. You'll see a lot more dashing later once we are pushed over from a blaster to a lightsaber, but we don't have to worry about that right now. Alright, so I'm going to... You can see those jumps can be challenging, but if you can catch them like pretty quickly right at the bottom, then you can... So that right there was actually a encounter skip where I was able to jump high enough above the screen to forego the fight sequence, and it saves a good 10 to possibly even like 15 seconds of time. So we have to enter that door to grab another key, take advantage of the green blaster ammo, which as you can see takes out most stormtroopers in one hit. Some take two. Very rare exceptions for that. So we try to be very careful in how we use it. We grab the health upgrades. We don't have to worry too much about health for the most part as long as we're moving efficiently. So there's an elevator cycle here, but we generally miss this super early. You can see I knew that I was not going to miss the elevator cycle if I just grabbed the health refill, because unless you're going super fast, you're just not going to get that very first cycle, ever. It may be a couple of tinkering around with the movement where I don't jump, or just very quickly get into the sequence and everything. So this is a rare case where you get to see the red blaster. It's similar to the green blaster, but sometimes the ammo will go through all the stormtroopers, so it's really dependent on how you shoot it and how you're moving as well. So you can see I'm focusing on trying to get as many jumps as possible while still not dropping too far down. So we gotta grab our speeder after this sequence right here, and then we will escape to make our flight over to the Death Star coming up next. This is a pretty short sequence here, but it is easy to mess up and lose a small amount of time on. What we like to do for this is we just focus on blasting as much as we possibly can while still moving through here without falling down any further. So part of the tech of this game is just being as stationary as possible sometimes while shooting up in different diagonals and then other directions. So now in the instance of that encounter cycle, we can just go through the bottom and there's no way that you have to jump. So we do grab quite a bit of health in this section, because if you don't, if you play too risky, you can just die for trying to go for risky strats there. So I was actually going for a speed strat where you just insta grab the ledge, but I didn't get it. Also, here's a fun little sequence where Boba Fett shows up one episode earlier than he should be. Not 100% sure why that's the case, but we're not going to worry too much about it. So we're moving on to the Death Star. Death Star is pretty similar to Tatooine. A couple of differences are there are now more bottomless pits. This particular sequence, we're actually shooting some blaster bullets in advance. So as you can see, I used my last two green blaster shots on those stormtroopers before I grabbed the refill. And you'll also notice, like, once you know this game a little bit better, you have the roll technique, and you can purposefully set it up a little early in a way that it looks like you're going to run in bonk into the wall, but then you'll just barely make it through. And it's cool little speed tech that you can learn. it only gets used so often because after a certain part of the game, you'll just have no real need for it. So you can notice I had to wait for certain stormtroopers to show up in certain parts of that section in order to open that locked door. So one thing that will come into play is just not climbing up too high on the walls, but just high enough where you can grab the next ledge just directly above. And if you do it right, it'll look really quick. So that time I wasn't able to get the rollout right away because I forgot. You don't have to shoot that stormtrooper, fun fact. You can just leave it be and then just focus on these groups at the bottom and the top. And so this section is a bit annoying. There's 2 sets of lasers. You have to focus on shooting on both sides. I didn't do the greatest job here, but I was able to get through them relatively cleanly there. If you handle it poorly and you group really badly, you can lose like in upwards of 30 seconds there, or even a minute if you die. Again, the game wants you to shoot certain stormtroopers in certain locations, so you have to go up for those sets. It's pretty rehearsed for the most part once you know the patterns, and then you go back down to the bottom. 2 rolls is enough to get us through. Then shoot the stormtroopers as such. Try to use as little ammo, as much ammo as possible before you switch to the next refill. Didn't have to worry about it that time. That could be an instance where we could just grab the actually, that may be the only difference. I think the only difference between the blue and the regular blaster hits is that the blue ones, I think they can insta-kill if you're jumping. Okay, that was a bit tougher. You'll notice that I just passed by a few turrets. You have to stun them every now and then just focus on shooting the stormtroopers again. You can let them hit you a few times, but like, you don't want to let them get too much of a problem. So this is the part where you have to shoot downward diagonally, and that can be a bit troublesome. As long as you don't go too far in one direction or another, and then make sure to shoot those two switches so that you can move across the laser panel. So we have a bit of a cycle. Was hard for me at first. We're just going to shoot these, well, in runs from here on forward, I'll shoot the stormtroopers and then just go to the next fight. So we want to make sure to shoot that switch right away, because if we don't, we're just going to immediately fall into the lava, into the pit below, and I have done it many times. In the case of this next part of the section, I actually just dash normally, and then it may look like I'm in trouble, but if you stand the way that I am right now, the turret will think you're directly underneath, but you're not, so you can just get away with just standing in that particular position and then moving on to the next section. So this is actually a pretty neat little section of the game where you can just shoot everything diagonally in one position every single time and not have to move anywhere, but because I was low on health, I had to. So there's a particular cycle I did miss because I was trying to dash and I ended up walking. Fortunately, I didn't lose too much time. And now we're moving on to another slow 2D2 section. Now this here, you can lose some time if you end up getting killed. Fortunately, I do not, but also because slow 2D2, you can miss a few elevator sequences depending on how fast or slow the boss fights go. So you can see me running back and forth for the most part. I managed to remember to grab the key, and that allows us to move on to this next area, which is this keypad for the door right ahead of us. So I'm actually purposely going to wait for R2D2 to show up so that we don't have to dash back for him. And then just pivot back and forth, go for each of the kills that way. And then I will dash purposefully here so I can activate the elevators. And hopefully he'll get on. Yes, yes. R2D2 did, which sometimes they can miss one or the other cycle. And in this case, we got both cycles, so it could have ended much worse. That one was a little bit slower for reasons I don't fully understand. Funny, based off the story. When we're running over to the control room, it shows off just like the original. Now we let R2D2 purposefully take some damage here, because after that sequence we're done with that part of the Death Star, and then we get to play the only part of the game with Princess Leia. And Princess Leia is actually very handy. She serves as a second blaster, so we only have to shoot in one direction, which makes this one of the easiest sections of the game. It's just you have to remember where the stormtroopers are coming from, and that's pretty much it. Now, I don't have too much to say about this section, so I'm just kind of letting it round out a little bit. But one thing you have to be aware of is, of course, to make sure that the princess doesn't take too much damage. She can fend for herself, but she will not heal herself, so we always have to be very aware of that as a consequence. So this round kind of goes, starts bottom, top, and then both. So we'll have these different combinations, as you can see. And as long as you're shooting both ways, it should be a given, pretty much like I did there. And then it's opposites, vice versa for the next set, and then both top and bottom, much like the other ones. So pretty free, straightforward section of the game, where if we wanted to run some donations when I'm not commentating, this would be a perfect section just to run through a whole bunch of them. And then you could spill in a few here and there while I'm fighting and just going through the game as normal. You could probably also do it for the trench run as well. You could run a whole bunch of them there too. So there's going to be plenty of opportunities to read off quite a few. So this one, while I need a lot of a focus on it, I definitely wouldn't need to not have other people commentating while I'm going through this section, because sometimes you just die and there's nothing you can do about it. This is the TIE Fighter roundup, and the goal here is pretty much just to destroy all the TIE Fighters as quickly as possible without losing too much health. R2D2 will heal us up, but we don't want to lose R2 immediately. So as you can see, what I'm doing right now is I'm kind of just sort of just lassoing around them a little bit without speeding too much up, unless I have to chase them down. The best possible case scenario is we can just slowly shoot them like that in groups of 3. Sometimes you'll just get lucky and you can quickly shoot them like that. So, which is why we'll sometimes approach straight on every now and then, because that particular round of 3 /6 went pretty great. Now, as you may notice, I'm kind of concerned also about the amount of health I have. You have to, and you can see right there, I kind of just purposefully let them try to round me up, and then I chase them down selectively in that case, so I can have some time to heal up. And sometimes we play it safe, but then other times we have to really just be ready to let some time go away. Because this particular section here can just seep away at our time reserves. So there is that as a concern. In the regular beat the game category, we are super concerned about how much health we have because we don't want to lose too many lives here. We can lose as many lives as we want, but there's certain strategy about how we lose them. So I have to, bear that much in mind. So we got the last 4 here. They can be a bit annoying at the end, but their patterns tend to be like aggressive and then passive once you start chasing them down. So yeah, we got through that pretty quickly, but now I got health to worry about, and we can lose R2-D2 now if they shoot us from behind. So unlike the trench run skip category, this regular beat the game category, we have to be aware of our surroundings. Otherwise, stuff like that'll happen. I elected to, I could have decided to stay alive a little bit longer. What I was trying to do is, you can see, I was manipulating the movements of the each of the TIE fighters so that they would purposely run diagonally right into those little space walls or Death Star walls right below. So we have certain movements that we have to do to take minimal damage from the turrets and each of the TIE fighters. So it's not always easy. You have to either move forward, backwards, or lunge to the sides. That's one of the hardest walls to not take damage on. And that was actually a perfect manip that you saw there, where they were just looking like they were going to escape, but they still could hit at the very tail end or the side. So again, you can either manipulate them up or down and kind of have to decide in the moment. So it would be at the beginning of this sequence here that we would just skip the entire thing once we're done with the TIE Fighter roundup in the trench run skip category, and it would just show the numbers beginning to round down. So with this particular section here, we wait for the walls. We're not actually trying to kill them in this case, because we can just, well, I mean, you can do that, but then you also lose like your R2-D2 reserves, and we want to keep as many of them as possible because it allows us to heal our ship a little bit more. And if we lose all 3, or if we run it down to a low number, then that healing becomes less stable, and then we're in some big trouble if we want to try to keep on saving time. For the most part here, I've been handling pretty fine, but this next section was where things can go pretty badly. This is the TIE Fighter Roundup, Part 2, Electric Boogaloo. So what you might notice me trying to do is I'm basically just trying to not take any damage from the TIE Fighters while shooting them from the bottom. So I'm trying to do an arc movement, like so. The TIE Fighters can decide not to cooperate whatsoever, and if you get really lucky, you can hit 2 of them at the same time, but in the case of this, I had to go for 1 at a time just to keep it safe. We have yet to see a deathless trench run. Out of all the world record runs that have taken place for this run, it has not happened. It would be considered the golden, like the holy grail if it ever happens. Because if it does, I think you could get through the entirety of trench run in, perhaps you could have it like finish. You could be done with episode 4 as early as maybe possibly even 25.5 to 26 minutes, I'm thinking. This is purely theoretical. I wouldn't know unless we actually had a task set up for this specific category. So right now, I'm just getting through the last few TIE Finder sections, just making sure I don't run into any of these Death Star walls myself. And so far, it's going pretty uneventful, though this is where things can go wrong. You can see I am pretty low on health right now. I did end up dying. So, not perfect, but it could have been better. It was close to the end of the last part of the chase down to the final Darth Vader section, you'll see that the moment I get past this particular section of walls right here, yep. And then this is rehearsed. Just move up, down, and you won't get hit, and you'll be perfectly fine. It's really easy to get through this. Once you're here, it's home free, and then you're done with episode 4. And actually, the more I think about it, I think it would be possible if you maximize out the perfect TIE Fighter roundups and trench runs, that you could possibly get this done in as low as 25 or even 24 and a half minutes. I don't know the exact number, but that right there is the end of episode 4. So for those of you who watch the films, I'm afraid to say that that's been condensed down into 26 minutes. This is definitely how I remember watching the original trilogy, so, that's just me, though. So now we are done with episode 4, and from here on forward, for the most part, not all the time, there will be a few situational areas where we will switch. We have now got our handy-dandy lightsaber, and most enemies, it's just going to be faster to kill them with the lightsaber. It's what I'd consider to be a very melee combat-based weapon. One thing you have to be aware of in this first section on Hoth is you have to just be aware of where the pits are. And if you're not, you can just dash right into them. As you can see right there, I had a perfect awareness of where each of them were. You can see there's slight hesitation every time I go through one of these sections, just in case my memory goes blank. So, the lightsaber, unfortunately, unlike the blaster where you can play it safe and kind of just take a further distance, with lightsaber, you have to be right in range. Otherwise, you will not be able to kill your enemy off. Now, with these ice monsters, or I believe it's Wampa, I'm not sure exactly, but they take a fair amount of lightsaber hits. We purposely go down here. As you may notice, I've been collecting up as many of these health packs as possible. It will make quickly going through these next few sections a lot easier. You don't have to do as much healing or worry about dying as often, because death is a thing that does regularly happen even in the fastest runs of this game. We haven't gone too crazy perfect. There are some levels where you have to play perfect. So I was banking on getting uppercuts on that particular Wampa, but for me, and that worked in that particular instance. But does not always happen that way, though. So again, you'll see the dashing comes way more into play here. We're just dashing back and forth, concentrating on getting through each of the concentrated on not falling into that pit is one thing. The other is, of course, to just efficiently move from enemy to enemy. This is another one where you could die pretty badly. So there's 2 sets on each side. Focus on taking care of one side and then the next, and then we're done with the I love to call the abominable snowmen section. And now we got stormtroopers, and these take one uppercut hit for the most part. It will change. You'll start seeing them take more hits eventually. So for the most part, I'm just dashing back and forth while jumping for certain sections. And now you'll see those search droids show up as well. You'll need to destroy a few of them every now and then. Not always required. You'll see me grabbing that blaster ammo. It will come in handy for this next section. So I'm actually going to switch to blaster for this section here. And it saves having to use our lightsaber, where you could very easily just fall into a pit and die. So then I'll just use the remaining ammo, switch back to lightsaber. So I thought there was another Yeah, I actually took it safe there. I didn't know where the pit was, and you have a small frame of time where it's breaking, where you could get a second jump, but we don't count on it happening. You just play safe and try not to get in contact with that sidewall in the first pit in the first place. So again, pretty much the same as the other sections. We're just dashing back and forth, getting through those stormtroopers, and now we're at the base, and we're gonna get to the sequence where I have to navigate my way through the AT-ATs in order to get to my spaceship, because Hoth is doomed. The Empire has cornered us, and we have to get out. So as soon as they lift up their feet, as soon as we're able to cross over, we cross over right away. Especially for this one, we need that particular health pack. There's no reason to miss it. So this is a leap of faith. You will generally not miss it, but there is a risk if you jump a little too early. You have to get the good timing, and if you accidentally get caught underneath the foot as it is falling over, you will instantly die. So I've gotten to the point where I can get through it for the most part. This is one of those auto-scroller sections where you just do not want to die at any section if at all possible. There is one particular sequence of fights that will interrupt in between. We haven't gotten there yet, though, so there will only be one other leap of faith that will take place, and as you can see, I have acknowledged that, yeah, there's that fight right there. Get through that quickly. So, we're done there. We don't actually worry about the damage that the AT-ATs deal us, because it really doesn't do anything. So yeah, if you're just slightly under the foot like that, you can go for the jump, make it over the pit almost every time. Still cool to call it a leap of faith, because it looks like you're about to throw yourself into the pit below, but then you just don't. So it is handy. With that, we are done with the AT-AT section, and that will lead us into this next section of the game where the base is being destroyed. Again, pretty much same rules, with a few exceptions where I'll be showing different ways of how to handle it. Just dashing back and forth and taking care of each of the stormtroopers. That's a pretty simple way to deal with it. So as you can see, you don't have to destroy that one right there. I didn't know that, though, at the time in this particular run. So as you can see here, I'm actually just purposefully pulling on my blaster for that stormtrooper across there, because it is a bit slower to handle it the normal way. Unfortunately for this one here, we do have to jump back and forth like so. The other option is to handle one side and then do the other, but I guess I'd have to take a little bit more research into which way is a bit more efficient. So this section here can be tricky. If you forget about that stormtrooper up there, you can go the entirety of the run with you can defeat all these and think, wait, why is the fight sequence not done yet? So this is actually a fun section here. We just uppercut backwards, so long as directions aren't changed. And sometimes I'll jump the gun for trying to go to the TIE fighter, right in the nick of time. Run away, and Darth Vader just barely misses out. So now we're going to Dagobah, where we will get some training from Yoda to better use the Force. So Now we have the ability to double jump. This will come in handy, get us out of a few spicy scenarios a little bit better. Not it's a guarantee to get us out of every scenario. I chose to purposefully high jump there, double jump there, so more tech smashing, of course. Yoda will say, okay, all right, that and that, this and that, try. Do or do not, there is no try, well, however that quote goes. And now we have the ability to use the force push. Now, we actually are going to purposely jump over that boulder. We will use some force pushing every now and then. It's very situational. We will not be using it until we get to this tree here where we do have to use it. We cannot double jump over that one. And if there's a way to do it, it's probably like a task only sort of thing where it's faster just to do it the normal way. This next particular section here, you can get messed up if you fall into this green mud here. So that's another boulder we jump. You have to be very good with that double jump. I've missed it many times, so we're going to force push once, force push twice. Okay, that's the end of that. Be careful how we jump here. And then you can get caught there if you stick in the mud too long and the note is just like you're being reckless and you start from the very beginning. So push that boulder in, get one hit on False Vader, and falls down. Oh, okay. We get a vision. Our friends are in trouble, and we'll be going off to Cloud City next, which can be a bit dicey. This one can be difficult, so you're going to see what that's like. So now we are on the last slow 2D2 section. Thank the heavens, because then we don't ever have to deal with it again after this. This is the last section I will have to navigate with our 2D2 in. Fortunately, this section is where speed strats are pretty much like, for the most part, hindered by elevator cycles. So I unfortunately pressed up a little too early. This is the last section with R2 in the game. After this room, he's gone. And our astromech droid has been lovely. It's helped us to slow down a little bit to think. And now you can see I have the ability to go for a wheelie approach there. So now we have this sort of like spinny attack, wheelie attack. And we'll take advantage of that quite a few times. We have to wait for R2. Otherwise we can't get past this final wall here, say. And then R2 will make all the beeping sounds and be like, where are you? So yeah, that's that. Now we can just move at our own content, to our heart's content. So you can get caught in the uppercut on that ledge, as you can see. We will need to jump up there, so eventually we'll grab it, but we try not to. Sometimes we don't always get that choice. So we have to kind of jump back and forth without getting too badly caught in the each of the cross sections. Sometimes we don't get much of a choice in the matter. But we try our best to get through each of these sections without dying. There may be some regular deaths that do happen in this particular part of Cloud City. If there's anything where death's going to happen most frequently in any episodes, it's either going to be here or Endor. And we'll get to Endor soon enough. So again, you want to line yourself up like close enough to the stormtroopers so you can quickly kill them off. But you don't want to go too close where you could grab the ledges. Sometimes you don't have much of a choice in the matter each way, but like it's just that close enough range where you can kill them. Kind of like this phase is a pretty good example. Yeah, that was handled nicely. You also see some ground pounds here as well. Hammer attacks, I suppose, would be another word for those. So this particular section here can be scary. Depends on how you handle these laser walls. Oh no, I'm thinking a little further ahead. We'll get there. There's a particular section that is infamous for just deaths occurring in even world record runs. We haven't gotten there, but we're getting closer. So again, just a lot of spin blades, hammer attacks, uppercuts. There is no good way to handle this section. You can decide to split it one section for one section. That might be the best way to handle it, and then you're right here the moment you take care of the last one there. This is where the trouble begins. So there are laser walls, and if you get caught in them, you just straight up die. Fortunately, I handled it mostly like a champ. Not perfect, but it was good enough. And I've entered this room a lot of times with low health, just because you're getting faster, you sometimes miss the healing items. There's not much you can do about that sometimes. But in that particular instance, I didn't have to worry about it that time, so we try not to destroy that, so we can at least... Okay, so that's a scary section right there. Fortunately, okay. Oh, yeah, I remembered correctly there. We have to enter that room to grab our key so that we can create a laser ground to walk across. Create a platform for ourselves. So I haven't figured out, but I think there's a possible way. If you're like just high enough, you could maybe skip this cutscene. Don't take my word on it, though. That's something I may have to take more research into. So we'll jump here. Grab the ledge there. Do some hammer attacks. And then get ready to line up for this set of laser wall movements. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And if we do it correctly, we just won't miss it every time. And yeah, pretty good example of that. So I was actually anticipating the stormtroopers showing up at the side, but they did not. So we just had to... this one is one where you're going to be moving all over the place, and it can look a little awkward sometimes, especially if you accidentally grab one of the ledges. Most of the time I'm able to avoid that. You can make it look pretty good. So from here on, we're moving on to like the last major 2 rooms in the game for this Cloud City. Bit close with health, but I did a fairly good job with this Cloud City. It's not like to the same speed as I do it on some sections. Ooh, until then I was doing great. So yeah, that actually... In later runs, what I would do is I would actually go about it where you just drop down like normally. I tried to jump it and go for like a crazy run across, so you could be safe and go for the blaster here, but I decided to just go for some regular jumps and do it that way. There's no risk with this particular section. So, oh, that's right. We have to shoot this search droid, yeah. Otherwise, we can't advance further. It's one of those cases where if you So we do a jump, and if we don't actually aim to hit the laser wall, we'll just hug up against it. If we just go for the regular jump, but we don't actually go all the way for it. So this is the last room right here. So I dash past all those search droids. They'll catch up to us later. They always do. You don't actually have to worry about the search droids in this position, or this particular set of fights. You can just kind of let them go until this last section here. Then you'll want to try to go for them. So here we actually go for hammer slashes every time. And with that, Cloud City is complete. So now we get our first actual Darth Vader fight outside the ship. What he'll do is he'll go for some uppercuts, try to use a bit of his power, and then he will try to pull us into that carbonite chamber. So we try not to get caught in it. And the way we do that is by just jumping, double jumping in advance. And yeah, first phase is pretty quick, as long as you don't get caught in the carbonite. And then we make sure to take care of the fight and or grab the health right away, whatever is more desperately needed. Usually we just get the annoying fights taken care of first, so then we can grab it later. In rare cases, that will result in me forgetting to grab it, but this is the second last health drop we'll get. The last one will be in the beginning of episode 6. Actually, there's 2 more. So this particular section here, we do not aim to damage. We can't really damage Vader here. We just have to run like such, and hopefully we get one of those pieces of debris to hit the window early. The earlier the better. We don't always get control over how early that happens. And then just uppercut away. It's just better to uppercut immediately and then just let the cutscene play out. You could try to have him move a little bit closer, but we haven't found a fast enough way to make that work, so just kind of foregoing that randomness of how Vader moves around, and just uppercutting right away is the fastest current known methods. That's how runners of this game handle it. And with that, episode 5 is complete. For some reason, it's the shortest. For some reason, it only ends up being around 21 minutes, which makes episode 6 a real barn burner. This one here is where we get skiff guards. Boy, what can I say except they put up quite the fight. We're in Jabba's palace. We're trying to rescue our friends because they all got caught trying to rescue Han Solo. So at this point, I didn't know that you could actually just dash across and grab the health pack. So when I do the actual marathon run, you'll see me every time just go for one dash, grab the health pack, one more dash, grab the other one. So this is the last actual section of the game, I believe, or almost the last section, where we are able to grab healing packs. After this, once we get into Endor, you will have to heal using the recently acquired Force Heal. We could use it, but we can just generally... Okay, so I forgot there's a ledge there, but... what we try to do is we aim to just take advantage of all the healing packs without having to waste time force healing, because it does spend us time. And because healing items are available, we can just recklessly move through this section. See, there's a perfect example if we were low on health. So we can just handle it that particular way. So we're going to approach it with that sort of incentive in mind. And then we'll have to worry about healing. And I'll discuss that a little bit later. You have to be ready for certain areas. This particular section of the palace, for some reason, you just have to go back and forth. So Again, much like the Stormtroopers, uppercutting is pretty efficient for the most part. We do not generally go for a um, so not much to say here other than moving back and forth is going to be the most efficient way to handle this section, just to address all the enemies approaching you at once. There is a possibility of death there, but we will most likely not have to worry about it in the way that we would anticipate. It might just be an accidental pitfall. And now here comes some fun RNG, which is the Rancor fight. Rancor fight is not too fun. We need around minimum, I'd say, one rock, maybe two or three, depending on how feisty the Rancor decides to be. We want, as many rocks as possible, depending on how feisty the Rancor moves. We're just hoping to get like one or two, run it back underneath this wall right here, then to activate the switch. So, as you can see, I needed two there. One to move the Rancor further, and the other one to activate the switch. And, yeah, you can get that done in as little as 40 seconds, depending on how cooperative the Rancor is. Again, it seems very RNG based, so you can sometimes just have a really bad fight just due to the Rancor just playing by its own rules, and or the rocks breaking before you get the chance to force push them. So you have to suck it up, and sometimes it just doesn't work out. So now that we're going through this this auto scroller here, we have again our normal enemies from Jabba's section of the game, and then Boba Fett shows up. Now Boba Fett can actually be stopped before you get through the entire auto scroller if you are just really efficient with your uppercuts and spin blades. I was actually trying to heal there for some reason. You don't actually have to heal here. You can if you want. For the most part, you're going to be just fine. And the reason I say you don't have to generally worry about healing here is because we have our last health pack coming up in the next particular room. And I didn't know, even though, I got here and I realized, wait, I could have just foregone healing. So you can see right there is our last health pack that we grab, and then what we got is what we got, and we're on our own from here on forward, so. Yeah, you got to make sure to be on your feet so you don't miss that last one. You could do it you could miss it in a casual play and probably be okay as long as you're playing it easy. So as you can see, I actually disposed of Boba Fett super early, so now we don't have to deal with him anymore. He's just gone early on, so that's pretty neat. So I'm actually usually trying to dash back and forth, but sometimes you can get lucky and get a downwards hammer slash backwards as well and still get it to work a-okay. Not a guarantee, but, it's good backup improv in case you're actually able to hit it. So we're almost done with this auto scroller here. There we go. So that's done, and now we're getting to the chase that I discussed about in the replay, where from here on forward, the pressure's on you. You just gotta engage your nerves and be ready to make decisions on the fly. So the speeder chase is similar in style to the trench run, with a few major differences. For one, what you have to do to move forward is you have to slam the either slam the scout troopers into the sides of the walls to destroy them, and or shoot them from behind. And it's usually the main method is going to be the first that I discuss. Although sometimes you'll get a few opportunities to shoot them from behind, and that is like something you want to take full advantage of. Depending on what section of this chase you're in, you will just have this infinitely, changing background. Other times you will be fighting the stormtroopers while the scenery is changing. So, as you can see, that is one phase. There is a total of, I think it's 3 or 4 phases. I'm trying to remember exactly how many, but much like the trench run, the golden holy grail would be to get a run where you don't die on one. This one's a little bit easier to make a possibility than the trench run, because you can sort of rehearse the movements over and get used to when you slam the stormtroopers in. Although there's a bit of RNG to that as well. So, okay, so it does turn out there's 4 sections. I was trying to remember correctly. I blend 2 and 3 into one another. That's like how my memory kind of works. So, there is that. I don't have too much to say. That was an opportunity where he could have shot from behind, though it is a bit more challenging. Sometimes you'll destroy him like just moving in one particular direction. There I got particularly badly punished for hitting the side, although it could have been a lot worse. We were only at the beginning of that particular auto-scroller section, so it could have ended a lot worse for us, as you can tell. That's right there, so it maybe lost us 10-15 seconds. So you can see, doing it right that way, you're able to very quickly destroy the stormtroopers, the scouts that way. Now we're into the last section of the game. This is where the last section of this particular level. This is where the pressure's on. There's brush piles everywhere. There's logs. There's boulders. Everything is out to kill you, including the scout troopers themselves, like they had been through this entire speeder chase. So we want to avoid them as much as possible, and then slam them to the sides. Once we immediately destroy them, you want to be able to immediately veer away like that. That's a great example. And then there should be one more coming up. Oh wait, that's right. We got through it before the rest. So yeah, that's the speeder chase. You can get that and done in as little as, I'd say, 2.5 minutes to 3 minutes. I haven't figured out the perfect one for that one yet, because we all continue to mess up runs there, so it's not perfect, but we get closer. Now we're getting to the truly terrifying part of the run, which is Endor. Endor is a mess of uppercuts, and then another technique that Ghost Boy had normalized using in this game, which is force blitzing, which force blitzing actually comes in great handy as a speedrunning tactic, because you can just destroy like 4 to up to like 6 to 8 enemies all at once. The only problem is balancing out with force availability, so you have to account for that at all times. So we like to be aware of how much force we have versus how much HP we have, because if we forget about one or the other, we can lose a lot of time trying to recover it, or just outright lose lives. So in sections like these, we forego using force blitz sometimes. These sections here, I've actually opted to change them. There's some where we still use it, But in the case of this particular section, we just switch over to hammer slashing. And so I'd used it more often in this run because it was something that Ghost Boy was able to save a lot of time over on his run for. And it's a really safe method for the most part that can help you avoid a lot of blaster damage. Unfortunately, from here on forward, you'll be doing lots and lots of healing. That's just going to be something that's normal, and you have to decide how much you're willing to do. If you want to play it riskier, you can do a little less and just enough to get through each section, which I tend to do more of. Or you can play it a little bit easier and use a lot more force healing. So we actually use a lot of force healing here. A lot of force blitzing here, actually. We did not have to use it for this these last two clumps, but we did anyway. So uppercutting should be able to kill those stormtroopers almost every time, and it's a little bit more efficient than having to try to blitz, which would be a waste of force. So I actually decided to risk not going for the regular setup. I'd be curious if these flying insects, as you can see, new enemies. They're introducing enemies all the time still, even as you get to the end of the game. Because go figure, why not? So I did a little bit of healing, tried to see if I could grab that remaining force, but I didn't. So they got these cutscene sections where you got to be careful where you're dashing. As you can see, I barely made it that time. You can actually get away with a nice uppercuts method here and hammer slash as well. So actually this wouldn't be a section. Never mind. Yeah, I see why I did what I did here. Yeah, makes sense. Alright, so now we're going to get swarms and these whatever scorpion flying mosquito things. This is the point where enemies, I don't know the names for them all, so we actually purposefully just wait for the bug to move a little bit, and then we just force push the log, and it's an auto kill for that particular one, so we don't have to deal with the annoyance of that particular enemy. So those first few waves of enemies, I actually purposefully force blitz. You double jump up that vine a little bit to try not to get too far off. After that, we focus on just uppercutting as many of these as we can, and hopefully they'll just cooperate. Also, just make sure to hammer down slash that those wave of stormtroopers right away, or scouts. So here we can just uppercut to our heart's content, and it's a pretty super straightforward section until they start appearing from both directions. So and we got a few more sections left to go. Alright, so we can actually hammer slash all these. I didn't for some reason. I probably didn't know at the time. Oh, these are when the swarms come in. So we want to force push this. I made sure not to jump purposefully there, because if you do, you can sometimes just be magneted back down. This particular section here can be annoying because the enemies will sometimes just fly away on you. Depending on how quickly you get through this, sometimes the sequence will take longer to complete. There's an example of what I mean. Got a couple of these to defeat, a few uppercuts, and then we're going to switch back to hammer slash for these waves of scout troopers after we're done with these couple of pesky flying scorpions. And with efficiency, you can pretty quickly get through all those. So I kind of just reserve like uh, getting through with about 70 to 80% of my health every time I heal in between a fight. It may be possible to have slightly less than that. You do need to heal, though, at one point or another in each of the rooms. Otherwise, you will die. So we got one more room after this, I believe. And this is one of the scarier rooms. Alright, so we want to be careful here, because I have lost life to that particular one. So here we are. Got some swarms to complete our way through. You do not have to go that far into those rooms. You can actually just... See, I can actually just wait. Yeah, I eventually learned that you can do that. I was waiting for that other set to arrive from the other direction. And they'll start grouping up a little bit more cleverly. So you can see my understanding of this game got a lot better as I learned more about the patterns. So this is okay, I was waiting for the cutscene. There's one of these particular ones that you can just die on if you're not being careful enough. And I might die here? No, I didn't. Okay. I remember some world record runs where I have just lost it and just ate dust. But I think I'm remembering some of my trench run skip runs. So, fortunately for me, I managed to avoid that outcome. So, and after... Oh, yeah, it's this one. There's two of them. I had this one out of my memory. And, I mean, justly so. Now, this is where we get a lot of, you can see I had to, like, desperately heal quickly. I barely made it through that section, and, yeah. Endor is a very scary section. That's the very first scary half. That's the majority of it, though. After here, it gets a little less scary, although that's not a guarantee every time. So we're actually focused on just hammer slashing as much as possible, combined with uppercutting with this first room. If the enemies get too manageable, you can go for just a desperate old hammer slash, force blitz, but we try to avoid it. We try to save our force blitzing for a particular set of stormtroopers you'll see very soon enough. And you'll see that soon enough. So you can see me purposefully healing because these next wave of enemies here do tons of damage. And you'll see that very soon enough. I actually safety healed all the way to 100. Oh, I didn't use force blitzing for this one. I don't know why I didn't. I probably thought it was a little bit faster, but, you know, having gone through this run more recently, force blitzing is way faster for this section. I forgot how long ago this run is. I use this as an example for commentary for the non-trench run skip beat the game category, so... Because the two are kept separate based on what you have to do to set up the file beforehand. Now, I didn't do any force blitzing in the previous run, but then I decided to, for those particular low set of stormtroopers. Sometimes my brain, I can make some strange decisions like that in the moment, but with a lot of practice for a marathon like GDQ, I'd have a pretty good handle on preparing for that, so... Some of these bullets will hit me depending on how the cutscene pans out. Not this time, though, fortunately. We purposefully go full 100% for these last few. Just because once you get to this point, you just don't want to die. So, yeah. All force blitzing here. So we go for a little bit more healing. I think this was enough for me to make it through just fine. Yeah, looks like it. Yeah. And that's the last scary jump. So at the same time as sapping away at your energy, these enemies also sap away at your force user energy. But we were close enough to the end where it didn't matter either way. So last few enemy kills, and we are on to the last fight and the last section of episode 6, which is the Darth Vader fight, part 2. At least when we're not on a ship. So, got some dialogue to go through, and then that'll be the end of Star Wars Trilogy Apprentice the Force. So if you know the movie of episode 6, you know the drill. You know what's happening here. I don't have to explain much about this. I will have to say, I leave it to Luke to really decide to become a speedrunner. I don't know if the Jedi ever thought about that. He managed to defeat the Empire in slightly less than 74 minutes in the case of this run, which, in the movies it took him, a handful of hours there. So as you can see, we got a couple of hits that we have to go for, then sit through some of the cutscene, and then from here on forward, we're just free to uppercut and hammer slash to our heart's content until we get to the end of the gameplay itself, and then we just have to mash through a few dialogue sequences for the end. So you'll get to see some of that. And we as runners have gotten better at just uppercutting. There's a certain hit rate that applies to this, so we like to set up in that sense for succeeding that way. So there we go. Master a bunch of dialogue. Get that all done with, and we'll be done with Star Wars Trilogy, Apprentice of the Force. I think this is a fun game that the audience would really enjoy seeing. Just quickly go through the game and see the original 3 episodes in a way that not too many people have gotten to see, since this is a slightly lesser known game. So that is where timing stops, right as soon as we get to the victory screen. So look at those expressive faces. They're really happy to be there. They've just defeated the Empire. So, but yeah, that is Apprentice of the Force. I think it would be a fun game to show off, and much like one of my other games that I'm submitting for, Jackie Chan Adventures, you could have a donation voting incentive where you could choose between one category or the other. So that would be cool, and it would showcase another obscure GBA game that I think is very charming and is pretty well made. So for AGDQ 2023 consideration, I hope you all consider adding Star Wars Trilogy, Apprentice of the Force, to your schedule. So thank you all for watching, and there will be links to additional runs below. And take care.